Hello, Dialogue family. We're thrilled that for this most unique Mormon holiday Pioneer Day, that Darren Parry has agreed to record his Sunday thoughts, some things that he's written and shared over social media channels the last year. And I know that you'll be inspired as you listen to him and be reminded of our responsibility to one another, to the importance of building community, to the importance of the stories that we tell about ourselves and about our past and the values that they reflect. And I hope I'm sure that you'll be inspired as you think about how looking at the past can help us to, as he explains, find our way in the present and in the future. Darren Parry is the former chairman of the Northwestern Band of the Shoshone Nation. He serves on the board of directors for the American West Heritage Center in Wellsville, Utah, the Utah State Museum Board, the Community Advisory Board for the Huntsman Cancer Institute, the Utah Humanities Board, and the PBS Utah Board of Directors, whatever is happening with that these days. He attended the University of Utah and Weber State University, receiving a bachelor's degree in secondary education with an emphasis in history. He's taught Native American history at Utah State and is currently a resident and practitioner at the University of Utah's University Humanities Graduate Program. Darren is the author of the Bear River Massacre, a Shoshone History, and most recently, Tending the Sacred, How Indigenous Wisdom Will Save the World. And that's just out with BCC Press last month.
Sunday thoughts. Today, I woke with a heavy heart. Our leaders fighting not for the people, but for power, which makes it hard to believe that things could get better. We seem to be a divided nation. The fire is burning, and too many in power seem more interested in fueling it rather than putting it out. As a Native American man and tribal elder, I've seen division before. My people have lived through it. My ancestors lived through far worse, but they still chose to plant seeds. They still gather in circle. They still sang songs and told their stories, not because the world was good, but because they knew it could be better. I don't pretend to have all the answers, but I do know this. Hate cannot drive out hate. Anger alone cannot rebuild a broken house. We need each other. We need to sit down, break bread, and remember, before we were red or blue, left or right, we were neighbors and relatives and children of the same earth. I still believe in community. I still believe in the sacred responsibility we have to one another. Even if the world seems lost some days, I will not stop from showing up with hope in my heart, because the world will never heal without people that carry that hope, even when it's heavy. Sunday thoughts number 2. When I was a boy, my grandmother would tell me, the songs carry our memory and the stories carry our values. We didn't have textbooks back then, but we knew who we were because of the way we told our stories, the way we danced, and the way we painted the world around us. I hear people say that the arts don't lead to any good jobs, and that music and poetry aren't that useful. But from where I stand, as someone who has seen much change in this world, I say this. The problems that we face today, like climate change, loneliness, injustice, fear, and hate, these are not problems that can be fixed by technology alone. They are problems of the heart. And when people forget how to feel, how to care, how to remember where they came from, We all suffer. The arts and humanities are not just luxuries. They are the very breath of our people. Our ancestors knew and understood that. Our songs guided us through loss. Our stories taught us how to live well with the land and with each other. Art and music helped us see each other as human beings. They softened hearts, hardened by struggle, and teach us to listen. So in a time when the world feels like it's breaking apart, I believe it is the arts that can help stitch it back together with compassion, with memory, and with vision. Sunday Thoughts number 3. I have seen many seasons. I have watched the land heal after fire. I have watched families rebuild after sorrow. I have watched people come back even after they thought all was lost. So this morning, I just want to say this. Never underestimate the quiet power of hope. It doesn't shout. It doesn't always come in ways that we expect, but it shows up like sagebrush after a long winter, like children laughing in the sun, like the song of the meadowlark returning in the spring. In our Shoshone ways, we are taught to walk with humility and to remember that life moves in circles. Even the darkest nights gives way to light. Whatever burdens you today, know this. You're part of something ancient and resilient. You come from people who survived, who held fast to their values, who kept the fire burning when the winds blew hardest. So light a small fire today, in your heart, in your home, in your community. Offer kindness, speak truth, stand still and listen to the land. And remember, we are all still here, still rising, still hoping, and that to me is more than enough. Sunday Thoughts number 4. Half of America loves the dead Indian. A grandfather sat down with his granddaughter by the fire one evening. She had been reading her school textbooks about Native Americans, and she came to him with this question. Grandfather, why do they always talk about us like we only existed in the past? It seems like they love the old stories, but they do not care about what happens to us today. The old man smiled sadly and poked his stick at the fire. He had lived long enough to see many things change, but this question always stirred something deep within him. You see, he began slowly, America loves the dead Indian. They love the stories, the legends, the dances, and the songs from long ago. They love to look at us in museums, frozen in time. To them, we are something from the past, a relic of history that makes them feel special, almost like they were the ones who discovered us. But America doesn't love the Indian, the living Indian, the Indian who is still here, still fighting, still trying to make a future in these lands. The living Indian challenges their story because it reminds them that the past is not over. We are not just a memory in their history book or in their museums. We are here standing in front of them, asking for justice, recognition, and reconciliation. The granddaughter frowned, trying really hard to understand. But why can't they love us now like they did before? Because to love us now, the grandfather continued, would mean that they would have to acknowledge the harm that they have done, the land that they have taken, the promises that they have broken. It's easier for them to love us when we were ghosts from the past. It's not easy to love us as people with needs and voices and futures that are in the present. But we are still here, the grandfather continued. We carry our ancestors in our hearts and our future in our hands. They may want to keep us in the past, but we are walking forward. And it is our job, my granddaughter, to keep walking, to keep speaking, and to keep reminding them that the living Indian is not going anywhere. Sunday Thoughts number 5. What if Jesus walked among us today? Lately, I've been thinking a lot about Jesus Christ. Not just the figure we worship, but the man who walked among the poor, healed the sick, fed the hungry, and stood with the forgotten. He broke bread with those the world discarded, touched lepers no one would go near, and uplifted women and children and those on the margins of society. If he were to walk among us today, doing those same things, caring for the homeless, speaking up for the refugees, advocating for justice, what labels would we put on him? I believe half the people in my life would probably call him woke. They might say he's too liberal, too soft, too radical. But Jesus was never interested in fitting into anyone's categories. Not the Romans, not the Pharisees, not the conservatives, not the liberals. He was always about the one lost sheep. He was about turning over tables when injustice was happening in holy places. He didn't care what it cost him. He just loved deeply, radically, and without condition. As a tribal elder, I often see how quick we are to judge others with labels that make us somehow seem to feel safer. But the real work, the healing work, requires us to step beyond those labels. If Jesus showed up disguised as a poor or a refugee or an addict, would we recognize him? Or would we dismiss him because he doesn't look like our version of righteousness? Maybe our calling isn't to define who he is, but instead to live like he did. Sunday Thoughts number 6. The power of returning. There is a quiet, sacred power in returning. In our fast-moving world, we are told that progress means moving forward and never looking back. But our ancestors knew better. When we return to a place, to a teaching, or even to that old version of ourselves, we do so with new eyes and a changed heart. We find pieces of ourselves that were left behind. Sometimes out of survival, sometimes out of pain, but we gather them back up, not to relive the past, but to reclaim our wholeness. A few summers ago, I returned to the site of the Bear River Massacre with a group of young people. We stood quietly where my ancestors fell, and I watched those young adults lay down tobacco and sing a song they had just learned. I have been there many times before, but something about this day, the wind, the voices, the look in their eyes, brought something full circle. In that act of returning, the land spoke healing, and I saw the future look back at the past with reverence. Spiritually, even Christ taught the power of returning. again and again and again to the people, to the mountains, and to the Father. There is a humility in being able to go back. Sometimes the only way to truly find our way is to return to where we started, and listening more closely this time.